What's up guys, and welcome to the fourth part in my load balancing tutorial. So in this part we're going to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to routing the traffic. So we're going to start with setting up Nginx properly and making sure that it's routing between the servers as it should. So the first thing we need to do is we need to look into the configurations of how Nginx is set up, and we're gonna start by copying this file that I have, which is a preset, and also we're gonna edit it a little bit. So I'm gonna copy this, and also the first thing you need to do is you figure out which user Nginx is running. This is most likely going to be exactly the same as on my computer, but the way you can do it is like you type ps and then aux, like for processes and then auxiliaries, and then you grep on Nginx. So let me see here what I did wrong. Right, so there we go. And you can see here the worker. There is the master process, which is going to be root, but we're interested in the worker process, and this is run as www-data. So this is the user or the group that is running Nginx. So currently on my Ubuntu server, I have this home folder, and I'm in the load balancer, which is another user. So I'm going to start by creating a home folder for this user wdata. So let's create it. Let's call it the same w and then dash data. And also I'm going to cd into the home directory, and I'm going to check the permissions. And as you can see, let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So as you can see right now, it's owned by the load balancer user, which we don't want to. We have it set as the group and owner of the wdata user. So I'm going to chmod it, and well, actually I'm going to change the owner, so shown, and then like this, and then I never learned which one is the actual file and which one is the user. So I think it's like first you specify which is the user and then the file that you're editing. So then you need to put your password in there. Right. So where am I? All right. Probably created it in the wrong place. All right, so I need to be sudo. There we go. And it's owned by root since I was sudo when I did it. So I need to change permissions, as I said before. So like this. So now you can see the owner is wdata, but the group is still wrong. So we need to fix that as well. So we changed the group, changed grp. So now it's owned by the wdata user, which is the same that Nginx is going to running. So let's go into that folder, and in here we're going to create a another folder called cache. So like this, and also I need to be sudo, I guess. And also the same goes here. We need to edit the group and the user. So cache. Yep, so it has the right group and also the owner. All right, so there we go. And this is where our cache is going to be located. So when Nginx is caching data, it's going to save data into this cache folder that I created. So next thing we need to do is set up Nginx. So let's move into the -etc Nginx, and this is going to be, if you're using Ubuntu, this is going to be your path to it. And Otherwise, you need to find the location of your Nginx installation. And it's going to contain these two folders here, sites available and sites enabled. And let's go in and check what they contain. So let's start by sites available. So if you go in here into sites available, you're going to see that there is one already called default file in here. So if you have a look in this, see what it looks like, it's going to have some default configuration for Nginx. You see it's like listening on port 80 and setting up SSL certificates and stuff. So this is where you define your sites, and if you edit this file, nothing is going to happen until you reload it, because when you reload it, it's going to be copied into the sites enabled folder. So if I have a look in here, what you can also see that it has a symbolic link to this to the sites available file, and so it should contain exactly the same thing. So you can see it contains exactly the same thing because it is actually the same file. So I'm going to go into the sites available, and in here I'm going to, first off, I'm going to copy this file, the default file, and I'm going to call it _defaults, so that I have a copy of it, and I need to be sudo for that, I think. Alright, so there we go. Now we have a copy of the file, and if we look in the copy, you can see that it contains exactly the same thing. So now I'm going to remove the, probably need sudo for this. I'm going to remove the default. I could just probably have used mv for remove, but yeah, whatever. And then I'm going to create another one called default. So I'm going to replace the default file in here, because then the symbolic links and everything will already be set up for me, so I don't have to worry about that. Let me paste my configuration in here. Alright, and let me go ahead and save that. And also, now if I go back into the sites enabled and look in the default, it's going to be my custom configuration that I just created. So, alright, so let's close this down. I'm going to go through all the settings in a moment. I'm just going to set everything up. So let's see what happens when we hit our server on port 80. It still has the welcome to Nginx server. Let's see if it has something on port 3000. No, it doesn't, because I haven't reloaded it yet. So the way to do it is like sudo service and Nginx and then reload. And then it should reload your configuration files. So let's see if that works out for us. Well, something is happening, but it's probably not right configuration. And that's no worries for now. So this is how you would work with Nginx and configuration files. So let's move back into the sites available folder, and in here I'm gonna start editing the default file. Alright, so here we go. So I think I should probably go through them in here instead, because it's more visibly appealing. So the first thing you specify is the proxy cache path, and this is where you're going to save your caches. So this is the folder that we created and give the proper permissions in the wdata folder. And the levels, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it's how hard it should cache, basically. And the key zone, this is just a name that you give it. You can see if I double click this, it highlights down here. We're going to use it later for reference, so it's just like a name for it. And this is how long it's going to cache it. This is how big it'll allow the cache to become. So now I set it to 10 gigabytes. So obviously you need to take into consideration the disk space that you have. You don't have to worry about memory management, because it'll automatically deal with that for you. But this is disk space, so max size disk space. And inactive is how long it's gonna allow it to be inactive until it's gonna throw it away because of it being inactive. The use temp path, I'm not 100% sure what it actually does, so you can look that up for yourself. And this part right here, this is actually the most interesting part about the whole configuration, because this is where we specify what service we're going to use for our cluster. So you could put, if you have DNSs for your servers, you can put the DNSs in here. But in my case, I only have IP addresses and port numbers, so I need to specify the IP addresses. So if you remember, my IP addresses were 10 and 11. And this is the IP addresses to my application servers. So let me show you the diagram that I had in the beginning. And what we're doing now, we're specifying what IP addresses are we gonna have here when we do the round robin. We're gonna alternate between these IP addresses, and the IP addresses are specified here, and we also need to specify the port number. And this will also work with DNS. And then for the server, we're gonna listen on port 3000. And if you have SSL certificate, you can specify it here. I won't have any SSL certificates for this application, so I'm not gonna have it. So, but I still have it here. So you specify that you also have it on port 443. Then you should obviously not have this one, and you might have port 80 here instead. Doesn't really matter. So this port right here, it's specifying what port number you should have in this point of the load balancer. So when you have your website and it's going to communicating with your API, what port number it's going to connect to here. So you can have a different port here. You can, for example, connect to port 80 here, but then use port 3000 here, which is probably actually better in a way. But I'm going to go with port 3000, and you specify if you have a DNS for your system, you specify it here. And port 443 for SSL, you can turn SSL on, and to give it the full path to your certificate that you have, you need to have it like on a file with proper permissions on your server, and also with the SSL certificate key, same thing. And then in here we specify how we're going to do the routing. So the first thing we need to do is we need to specify some headers, and this is going to set the headers when it does the proxy. So it's going to take the request that it gets, and it's going to set the header, and then it's going to send it away to the server. So it's going to get the headers here from the first HTTP request. It's going to add them to the next request, and it's going to send them along. So that's what this set header does. So, and also the remote address. So it's gonna copy the host, the remote address, and forward for the scheme and all that. And also the cache status. This is something that you can do if you want the client to. You need to read up on this basically, because this means that in the implementation that I've had here, it enables the client to throw away the caches, and you might not want to do that all the time, because it can be like a security risk, because you're allowing the user to throw away the caches, so it never gets a cached data. But in my implementation, I want to have it enabled, so I think it's disabled by default, but you can read up on it on the specification in the Nginx. And here I set the proxy cache to what cache I was using, and this is the name that I specified up here on the top. And also I need to set how long the cache is going to be valid, and also here you specify how you're going to do the proxying. So if you for example need to have HTTPS between your load balancer and your application servers, you would put HTTPS here, but it's not recommended because you will have more overhead in your traffic without any security gains really. So I recommend you use HTTP here, and this is the name that you specified up here, so your upstream API. So it's going to be either this IP address here, or it's going to be this IP address here, and Nginx is going to deal which one it'll actually be. So that's that. But as you can see, I need to edit my IP addresses because they weren't correct in my configuration. So in here, I need to set them to the proper one. So I had 0.10 and I had 0.11. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And let's see if I can. Well, it's annoying. I didn't open it as sudo. I need to do that. Right, so there we go, and 0.10 and 0.11. Right, so let's go ahead and save that. And now, one really tricky thing is that sometimes you forget to reload the configuration file. So if I do like this, nothing is going to be changed. So you need to reload your configuration file, and you can also use restart if you like, but it's not really necessary because we didn't change anything else. We just changed configuration. So it's better to use sudo service nginx and then reload. It's going to reload the configuration file. And yeah, well, now it's stuck there for some reason. All right, so now you can see we're getting through to our API, which is kind of nice because this, well, actually, did I use the right IP address? I don't think I used the right IP address. Let me go ahead and check what IP address. Yeah, well, actually, I did. I think I specified the wrong IP address for server 2. Let me go ahead and make this super clear. So ifconfig. The first one uses .9, and the second one uses .10. Okay, so I specified the wrong IP address. So it needs to be 9, and this will obviously be different for you. And then I'm going to go ahead and reload it. So now if I hit, all right, so the IP address to the load balancer is 0.11, and this is the port that I'm hitting right now. So you can see if I change this to port 80, as it was previously, it's not going to work because there is nothing on port 80 anymore. So this is the basic setup. So now I'm going to alternate between the servers, and it's going to do the round robin. So what I'm doing right now here in Postman is that I'm using HTTP here, hitting my load balancer, and my load balancer is routing my traffic between server 1 and server 2 like this. But since they're returning the exact same data, there is no way of the user for telling which server it actually hit. So if I go ahead and try the ping endpoint, we should get the name of the server. So if I go ahead and do this, you can see I get hello from server 1. So now I'm hitting server 1. But the problem is now I'm doing my second request, I'm still going to be hitting server 1 all the time. And it's actually not an error, but it's kind of a feature in a way. And the stuff that's happening is when I do my first request, it's going to go ahead and it's going to go back to server 1, do stuff, return to the load balancer. The load balancer is going to cache the request and then respond to the user. And then the second time the user comes around, instead of going to any of the servers, it's just going to return immediately. So it's not going to even be hitting these servers. It's just going to return the cached version for 10 minutes. So, and it's 10 minutes because I specified 10 minutes here and 10 minutes here. So that is what's happening at the moment. And also, if you want to check it out, do you remember I created in my home folder here and wdata in here, I specify the cache folder. So if you go into this folder, you can see that there is stuff going on in here. This was empty previously. I'm not I'm not sure what actually what's going on in here, and frankly, I don't think you should even care, because Nginx takes care of this for you, and you shouldn't actually be concerned about, at this point at least, you shouldn't be concerned about the details. So yeah, well, maybe some. So you can see in here it has some kind of hashed value. So it's super, I mean, cryptical about what's actually going on here. But if I remove all this in here, like this, well, yeah. So you can see now it's empty. If I try it again, well, actually, I think I broke something now. Maybe, maybe I broke something. I need to restart it. All right, so now we have the temp folder again, but no cache data. So, well, I hit the same server again, unlucky for me, but I can promise you that's what's happening. And you can see now it's being cached in here. So we have no way of differentiating, we have no way of telling if this second server here, is this alive? So in the next tutorial, we're gonna go through how we can deal with issues like this. So this has been quite a heavy tutorial. I hope you guys follow along, and if you didn't, please go back and watch it again and go back and forth until you figure out all the details of my configurations. And I'm gonna keep my configuration here for a couple of seconds so you can pause it and have a look at it and write it, like copy it. And I hope you guys liked it, and don't forget to comment if anything should be unclear, and also don't forget to subscribe. So see you in the next tutorial. Bye.